In the shadow depths of post-World War II Russia, an experiment was conducted that would push the boundaries of human endurance and sanity. This is my story. This is what I saw. I was there, in the bleak, shadow depths of post-World War II Russia, when a group of scientists initiated a grotesque experiment. I was a young researcher, eager to make my mark in the world of science, oblivious to the horrors I would soon witness. Our aim was to explore the outer limits of human endurance and sanity by depriving 5 political prisoners, condemned as enemies of the state, of sleep for 15 days, using a malevolent experimental gas. This is my account of the harrowing descent into madness, horror, and the darkest recesses of the human mind. The prisoners were handpicked from the darkest corners of Soviet prisons. They were promised freedom in exchange for their participation. The chamber was stark and sterile, equipped with only the bare essentials: books, cots without bedding, running water, a toilet, and enough dried food for a month. We, the researchers, peered through thick glass portholes and listened intently through microphones. At first, the subjects conversed in hushed tones, their voices heavy with past traumas and whispered fears. I remember Ivan, a former soldier, his eyes haunted by the war and the loss of his family. He put on a brave face, but I could see his psyche crumbling beneath the surface. Then there was Nikolai, a political dissident driven by ideology but broken by torture. His sharp mind was already battling with eroding sanity. Svetlana, once a nurse, had witnessed atrocities that shattered her faith in humanity. Her calm demeanor masked a deep-seated fear. Dmitri, a criminal mastermind, was calculating and manipulative. His cunning was his greatest asset and his deepest curse. Lastly, there was Anastasia, a poet whose spirit was crushed by the regime. Her creative mind spiraled into dark, surreal fantasies. As the gas continued to seep into the chamber, the prisoner's behavior began to change subtly at first. Conversations grew darker, their eyes darted suspiciously, and paranoia took root. Ivan, once a pillar of strength, began muttering to himself about shadows that weren't there. Svetlana's calm facade cracked, her hands trembling as she whispered to the walls. Nikolai and Dmitri eyed each other warily, their ideological differences flaring into quiet hostility. Anastasia scribbled furiously in a journal, her poetry devolving into maddened scrawls. I began to feel an uneasy tension in the observation room, a silent dread creeping over us all. On the 9th day, the first screams erupted. Ivan, his eyes wild with terror, ran the length of the chamber, his voice a guttural roar that echoed through the facility. He screamed for hours until his vocal cords were shredded, producing only strangled squeaks. The other prisoners, eerily indifferent, continued their whispered monologues. The chamber's walls soon bore witness to their madness as they smeared pages of books with their own feces, plastering them over the portholes and plunging the chamber into an oppressive silence. I remember the metallic taste of fear in my mouth, the way my heart raced uncontrollably as the screams faded into a chilling quiet. 3 days passed in silence. Our anxiety mounted as we checked the microphones hourly, finding them functional but devoid of sound. Oxygen consumption suggested the prisoners were still alive, but their eerie quietness gnawed at our nerves. Desperate for any response, we used the intercom to announce we would open the chamber, offering freedom to one who complied. A calm voice responded, "We no longer want to be freed." The cold, emotionless tone sent shivers down my spine, and I found myself dreading what lay behind the smeared windows. At midnight, the chamber was flushed of the toxic gas and filled with fresh air. Voices erupted in desperate pleas for the gas to be turned back on. As soldiers entered to retrieve the subjects, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror. 4 prisoners were still alive, though their state defied any semblance of humanity. Flesh and muscle were torn from their bodies, organs lay fanned out around them, and the chamber floor was a slick mess of blood and water. The sight made me retch, and I stumbled back, my vision blurring with tears of terror. The prisoners fought with a savage ferocity. Ivan, his eyes now hollow pits of madness, lunged at a soldier, ripping out his throat with inhuman strength. Svetlana, her face a mask of serene insanity, clawed at another soldier, her nails digging deep. The carnage continued, with Nikolai and Dmitri displaying an unholy resistance to sedatives. Anastasia, her body twisted and broken, smiled through bloodied lips, reciting dark verses that echoed through the chamber. I watched in horror, paralyzed by fear, unable to tear my eyes away from the nightmare unfolding before me. The surviving 3 were restrained and transported to a medical facility, their bodies a grotesque testament to their ordeal. Surgery without anesthetic revealed their unnatural fortitude. Ivan smiled through the procedure, his eyes meeting mine with a chilling calmness. Their pleas for the gas resumed immediately post-surgery, their will to remain awake unbroken. I felt a cold sweat drench my back as I realized there was no turning back from the madness we had unleashed. The military, undeterred by the horror, insisted on further gas exposure. The subjects, eerily compliant, awaited their return to the chamber. Monitored closely, their brainwaves flickered between life and death. One subject, Nikolai, succumbed to sleep, his heart and brain ceasing simultaneously. The last speaking subject, Ivan, witnessing this, demanded to be sealed in, his brainwaves mimicking the deceased. My hands shook as I recorded their final moments, my mind barely able to process the depths of their transformation. In a final act of madness, Dr. Orlov, his sanity frayed, shot Lieutenant Volkov, then turned the gun on the mute subject, Dmitri, before finally aiming at Ivan. The subject's chilling words, "We are you," revealed the depths of their transformation. "We are the madness that lurks within you all," he continued, his final breath a whisper of dark freedom as he succumbed to the bullet. I felt the world tilt, my vision darkening as I realized the true horror of what he meant. The experiment left a legacy of horror, a testament to the dark, untamed corners of the human psyche, and the monstrous potential that lies within us all. This is the story of the darkest places of the mind, where madness and fear reign supreme, and the line between humanity and monstrosity blurs into a nightmarish abyss. I have never been the same since, my nights haunted by the memories of that chamber, the whispers of those we condemned to unimaginable torment.